Snap. We're back with the Marvel Snap video, as today we're going to go ahead and review the latest balance patch. If you want to look at what I'm looking at in the screen right here, go to marvelsnap.com, head over to the news section, and click on the latest post, the one that says Patch Notes, March 21st, 2023. You can read. Fantastic. Click on it and we can both look at it at the same time. If you haven't already, this is a patch review, not a patch reaction. I did a reaction on my stream, aka I just went into it blind and I gave my first impressions there. But here in this video, I want to, share with you my more condensed thoughts. And by condensed, I mean like a couple of hours really, but it's better than something fresh and immediate, I guess. And I think I have a little bit more wisdom to share, because I have quite a few things to say. We're going to be focusing though on the balance notes. We're not really going to be talking about the tokens or the shop update. I was going to make a video about that this weekend, but I've had a few couple of days in which I've been really focused on another project that I'm working on, and I've also been feeling quite sick, so I haven't been uploading quite regularly. But with this balance change, you can expect more frequent content onto this YouTube, and of course the regular streams on Twitch as well. I say that a lot, but this time you gotta believe me, okay? I can change, goddammit. But let's talk about the balance changes. Essentially, let's move on to that. Let's focus on this right here, so this video does not take forever. Balance updates are, and we have the changes here. They have the reasoning, for, well, let's just read what they have to say, all right? The unscheduled changes to Zabu and Silver Surfer made the metagame shifts for the last month more difficult for us to predict, and we weren't able to make timely adjustments for technical reasons. In that time, Thanos became one of the most dominant decks yet. His weak matchups versus Zabu and Surfer had really been holding the Mad Titan back. Shuri-based decks were another big winner here, and both of these archetypes have exceeded our tolerances for game balance. This patch's adjustments are aimed at restoring order and weakening each of them. We are continuing to explore updates and improvement to both our balance technology, that sounds very flashy, and our philosophy around scheduling changes, and we look forward to sharing that with you soon. So what does this mean? Basically, English. Essentially, what they're saying is that they should have offered a balance change sooner. Like this patch did get dragged out more than it should have, which is why people, got a little bit extra burned out this time around, because this meta did end up becoming very frustrating in the end, especially with the Time Stone ramps into Leech combined with Lockjaw Space Stone nonsense. That really got old, and it made the ladder a pretty frustrating place to be in. And you saw it impacted Twitch viewership and everything. Like, people lost quite a bit of interest and have been waiting for this patch for quite some time. The reasoning is that they had technical problems. Like, they could not, because before, I believe about a month ago, more or less, they announced that they could be, or they were going to be implementing balance patches more often, because they are able to essentially implement them as sort of like hot fixes. Because otherwise they are tied to this sort of Google Play schedule. I'm not really sure about the details, but I've heard this with Legends of Runeterra as well in the past. Essentially, you have a limited amount. Not only do you have a limited amount of patches you can do, but you also have to have them ready like 2 weeks beforehand as well. So that really does limit the speed at which they can do things. But they announced that they can actually navigate around this and present some balance patches as forms in the form of a hotfix, and essentially fix that problem. But they weren't able to do so this time for technical reasons. What those technical reasons are, we don't really know, but they were reasons and they were technical and they happened. So hopefully that changes for the future and we can see more regular changes happening on a digital card game. I think there's a lot of people, especially I see on the subreddits and such. I'm going to go a little bit of a tangent here, but I really need to get this off my chest. Like, there's a lot of people who just really dislike them nerfing stuff and just changing cards in general and just call the community a bunch of whiners and this and that. And I just think it's really, it's a sort of opinion that's never really going to go away. But most of the time it comes from inexperienced players. I've seen a lot of players like actually talk about how Thanos is fine and they don't even have Thanos. So it's one of those things where, you know, it's the court of public opinion. Like everybody has a voice, and that's not always a good thing, because as a card game fanatic that I am, as somebody who's been dabbling the genre for a long time, I think the biggest perk and a necessity that comes along with digital card games is the ability to balance them regularly. You look at a game like Teamfight Tactics, and they have balance patches pretty much every 2 weeks. And there's no reason why that should not be the same for a card game. I would argue that the whole argument behind people, you know, essentially people saying that you need time to figure out the meta, right? And you need to be able to find the counter to what's popular. And if you balance the game very frequently, then you're gonna strip people away from the ability to adapt, right, to said metagame. And this is a pile of bullshit, because this is essentially, these people think that we still live in the 90s and we don't live in a data-driven, you know, environment that has changed the card game genre completely and has essentially put us in a position where metagames get solved really fast. And while there's always room for innovation, I mean, to a certain extent, it's nowhere near as everlasting as the vast majority of people who claim this believe it to be. So it's just silly. It's a silly argument, and there's no reason for us, especially in a game like Marvel Snap, in which the game revolves around one stat over the extension of 6 turns. It doesn't take long to figure out what gives out the most points, what consistently works better. And it's important for the developers to be able to not only nerf stuff, but also buff stuff on a regular basis to keep the game fresh and fun. And I will die on this hill. And with that, I'm going to end that portion of the video. I just spent like, I don't know how many minutes rambling there, but I really need to get this off my chest. Balance changes, frequent balance changes are good, okay? They're good and they're necessary. And if you don't like it, fuck off. All right, let's move on. So, first of all, Thanos changed from a 6'11 to a 6'10, right? At first this change is like, okay, this is all they're doing. It's like, wait, what? Calm down. We increased Thanos' power in a previous patch that was built during a time when Zabu and Silver Surfer were suppressing the success of Thanos' base decks. AKA, we fucked up. Big time. We're happy to keep him at 9+ power for Shang-Chi's Shake, which is smart. I mean, I think they could keep him at 9, but whatever. But given his recent success, we thought it appropriate to pull back on that buff just a touch. You know, kind of not admitting that this was a major goof. This change won't dramatically impact the success of Thanos' decks, as most of the strength is in the stone interactions, and that is true, especially after you know, we talk about the Quinjet change. But first of all, my favorite change in this patch, the Space Stone change, I think I'm gonna go ahead and tip my beanie off a little bit towards the developers with this one, because this is just brilliant. Space Stone on reveal, next turn you can move 1 card at this location, and now it is next turn you can move 1 card to this location. This is huge. Absolutely huge. As they say here, is amongst the strongest stones in Thanos decks due to its ability to create bonus lockjaw triggers and disguise where strong cards might move, because you don't know where they're going, right? Like if you play a Space Stone there, you don't know if that card will go left or will go right. Like it's just really, really hard to read at the same time. It's extremely powerful. This change reduces its efficacy with Lockjaw by removing the incentive to play Space Stone itself for a Lockjaw trigger, flattening the number of bonus triggers opportunities for Lockjaw, and restricting the strategic options for late game movement. We expect this to reduce the tactical flexibility of Thanos decks and make them more fun to play against. I adore this change. Not only does it do everything they say here, it also allows Storm to be viable again. Storm was really set back by the Thanos meta because even if you stormed on curve, they could always potentially Space Stone on turn 5 even and send something big over there. Now they can still play a Space Stone on turn 4 to move something into there, but they're much more constrained in their ability to navigate into locations where they shouldn't be able to go. No longer can Space Stone be used for the Thanos decks to move into locations like Sanctum Sanctorum and essentially giving them a massive edge regarding mobility over pretty much every other deck out there without much of a drawback. This stone is still really solid in movement synergies. It can still offer a lot of neat plays. It's not useless by any means, but it is just significantly more fair. It tones down the lockjaw madness by a mile while still keeping the potential for movement Thanos builds very much alive, which I very much appreciate because I think it's quite the unexplored territory and one that I've already dabbled into today, and I've had a lot of fun doing so. So it's just Space Stone also prevents them from countering a Spider-Man as well, because Spider-Man can be countered by a Space Stone too on turn 5, and it's just great. It's just fantastic. It is my favorite change of this patch, and I have just nothing but good things to say about this. Well done. Really, really nailed it with this one, and I just love it. I think it's exactly what you need to have the card, and I really, really like overall the changes applied to Thanos, especially because we're going to be talking about Quinjet. Now reduces the cost to a minimum of 1, right? This is massive. This is one of the biggest things that made Thanos so crazy, right? Or one of the things that make Thanos so crazy. My English is off. But essentially, this is what allowed them to really pop off and just not only be able to play these stones for free, allowed them to play them alongside other things. It also enhanced the synergy or the strength of cards like Sunspot and She-Hulk. It just really all added together. Zero energy plays are extremely powerful in Marvel Snap, and the ability to enable that should be limited to things, and Quinjet was something that definitely just got way out of control. And this is an excellent way, a very classy, elegant way to essentially nerf, just delete this interaction without redesigning Quinjet in a drastic way. So I absolutely love it, and this is the biggest hit to the Thanos deck, and it's going to be very, very relevant, mind you. I believe that these changes are enough to really set the deck back. Not kill its viability by any means, but definitely strip it away from just being the dominant force that it has been as essentially a tier 0 beast. I think this will humble it down, and it's great because I do like the ability of building Thanos with other strategies without it just overtaking everything and monopolizing the ladder. So fantastic changes here, especially the Space Stone one, but the Quinjet one also needed to happen. I'd argue Lockjaw is still the most problematic card out there. I think Lockjaw is going to represent more and more problems as the card pool expands, but I am happy with these changes, and while it's not exactly what I wanted, it's pretty close to it, and I am most definitely satisfied so far with the overall nerf to Thanos Lockjaw specifically. So kudos to the devs on this one. The next aspect of this change is not what I'm crazy about at all. I do think as well as they hit the mark with Thanos, I think they missed with Shuri. Red Skull goes from a 515 to a 513, and an ongoing effect of enemy cards at this location having +1 power. This is a buff. This is a buff to Red Skull. And this is their argument. This change is singularly aimed at reducing the strength of combining Red Skull with Shuri and Taskmaster. By 4 points? What? Outside of those interactions, this change is mostly a buff to the base case usage for Red Skull, giving you 9 or 10 power at crowded locations rather than 7 or 9. Yeah, Red Skull is better now. Obviously, the Sauron synergies and stuff have been nerfed, but ultimately, Resco is just a better card. And I don't understand how this is supposed to be considered a nerf to the Shuri. Like, okay, just let's do some basic math here, okay? Turn 4 Shuri, turn 4 old Resco, 30 points, giving that lane potentially. Let's say that lane is filled up with cards. 30 points, giving that lane 8 points, 22 points. All right. Shuri into new Resco, 26 points, giving 4 points to that lane, 22 points. It hasn't been nerfed. It only nerfs the afterwards Taskmaster play from 30 to 26. How is that solving the problem? How is that actually solving the problem? It isn't. It isn't. Like, it is just wild to me. Like, I don't understand. And yeah, we're gonna go over Taskmaster because it has been nerfed, right? But not in a way that stops the Cosmo into Shuri into Resco. Like, that curve is nuts. And with the change to Aero that we're gonna talk about in a bit, like, I'm afraid of Shuri just taking over and dominating with what I honestly, my opinion is to be like is just a very dull play pattern that really just is very oppressive towards other more proactively focused decks. And I just don't understand how this is their like, I just don't understand their reasoning for this being a solution to the problem. I really don't. As then, I love this change. She-Hulk nerf from 10 power to 9 power. I actually believe this was a great call. She-Hulk is extremely dominant, very, very, not only in Shuri decks, but also just in a bunch of decks. And she's gonna be she's still gonna be extremely potent in the meta. And she got the good old America Chavez treatment. America Chavez used to be 10 power, and now she's 9, and the same goes for She-Hulk. If she gets doubled by Shuri, she's 18 power instead of 20. But just keeping her at Shang-Chi range is very key, while also, you know, toning her down and perhaps not making her as auto-include as she seems in a lot of strategies. Like, she is one of the most popular cards for a reason, and it's a fantastic nerf that I have already noticed in my game. So I am a big fan of this one. And now let's talk about oh boy. This is the one that's really gonna open the floodgates. Like, this is where this is the real change that's gonna shake up this entire meta on its head. Aero 5/7 on reveal, move all enemy cards played this turn to this location. Now she's back to a 5/8 on reveal, move the last enemy card played this turn to this location. I have already managed to play around Aero because of this massive nerf to the card that will definitely remove her from top tier meta status without a doubt. You have the ability to easily navigate her around her now, and she will only be effectively countering 6 or individual plays, which means 6 drops for the most part. Even the Shuri decks can preserve a 1-drop for turn 6. A lot of times, you know, most times they play Taskmaster into a 1-drop, and all they gotta do is play that 0 or that Titania last, and then their play is Aero proof. This is a huge, like, the nerf to Aero, which is insane, right? But exciting in one part. It's both exciting and terrifying, right? Because exciting because it really opens up the meta. A lot of strategies that get hard countered by Aero all of a sudden are let loose, and that's gonna shake things up more than anything here. And that's always exciting because it means new. It means new, you know, unknown territory. And that's the favorite. That's the honeymoon phase of a card game, man. That's the moment to really, you know, get brewing and get experimenting. That's when net decking is less of a thing as people are figuring shit out, and it's fantastic, right? But it's terrifying because there's already some things that come to mind. First of all, the Shuri. This is an indirect buff to Shuri because Aero was the biggest counter to Shuri decks. It's also a massive buff to the Death Wave tactic, which has been, you know, let loose as well, as you can definitely expect that to be super popular too. And yeah, and mainly Shuri, because Shuri is arguably stronger than she was before. And especially with that Resco, I mean, not stronger than she was before, but definitely not hit hard enough. And I'd argue that this nerf to Aero makes her better, makes the archetype better. So that's what I mean by terrifying. We'll see how it plays out, but this Aero nerf, while we're all like, most people are happy about this, I do believe this could be the beginning of something really spooky, and we'll just have to wait and see how it all envelops. As then we got Mystique, Absorbing Man, and Taskmaster. I think this is how these cards should have worked from the beginning. I mentioned this several times. They are now required. They now require the previously played card to be in play in order to copy its attributes. Right? This means that when Taskmaster goes down and he starts scanning shit, he can't just like scan nowhere and get that 30 power. What? Sorry, 26. 26 5. The 30, but 26 is okay. This is great because now if you Shang-Chi the Shuri body, then Taskmaster will have nothing to copy. The same applies for Mystique, and the same applies for Absorbing Man. And this is even more relevant now that Negasonic Teenage Warhead is released, as that means that there is more counterplay added to the game, which means that these cards will not be as, fail-proof. And that is very, very important. It adds more interaction to the game, and that's, in a game like Marvel Snap, I'd argue like that's mostly always a good thing. And that's a big statement to make, right? Like it depends. But in this case, this is just super positive. This is how it should be, in my opinion. And I really, really like this. And this is a nerf to the Shuri archetype. Don't get me wrong. This is definitely a nerf because you can now Shang-Chi the target and they can't Taskmaster, right? But again, Cosmo on 3 makes that deck really spooky because all of a sudden it's like, okay, what do you do, right? It's not like it's uncounterable completely, but it's really scary. And I think we're in for a very, very, very Shuri prevalent meta. Like there's no way this is not a Shuri prevalent meta in my mind. And that's not something I'm super excited about. The Morbius changes, from what I've heard, they're just purely visual, right? They're just visuals. Like they're not actual changes to the cards, except Null does not. Null is actually a buff, right? Because Null does not. I mean, it's technically a buff for both, but basically, because Null does not update in the deck, which means that Null will only update the power once you have him in hand, and that means that Mr. Negative will not mess up your Null. So Null Negative is now better, and that's an archetype. That's a mix that I particularly enjoy a lot. So you can expect some content on that because I do have a deck for that, and I really, really, really enjoy that. So good stuff in that sense. But correct me if I'm wrong, but this is purely a visual change for these two. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on that. And then the Widow's Bite is also it's just also like a text correction thing. So it's also not relevant. That is essentially the patch right there, right? First of all, nerfs. Have we missed any nerfs? I believe Leech should be changed to only affecting the hand once a turn. It's not just about pure balance, it's also about the fun factor. And I think this Thanos Lockjaw meta has taught us that ramping into Leech is one of the most toxic things we've experienced in the game. Nobody likes it, nobody enjoys it, well, except degenerates. And it's ultimately, it's just bad. So I think changing Leech to only affecting your hand for one turn is a really elegant solution that fixes the problem and does not affect the card's overall viability as a tech option. And have him be played at turn 5, which is when he was meant to be played. Or if you want to ramp into him, fine. You nullify your opponent's hand for one turn, and then they get their abilities back after. That's not nothing, right? Like maybe they really needed their 5-drop ability to go on that turn, and you took that away on turn 4. Like it's not nothing, but it definitely is not just like, oh, I come in early and I just destroy your hand. I really do. I don't care about in which direction the meta shifts. I just don't think Leech functioning the way it does now is a good thing, and I would have liked to see that change. Other nerfs that I would like to see. I mean, I'm not a Lockjaw fan, but I also believe that for now with these changes he should be fine. Maybe I'm wrong and the deck is still busted. Like I could be wrong, but my initial impression is that that's not the case. So beside that, I don't really think the other nerfs were necessarily warranted unless I'm missing something here. I think they hit a lot of good stuff in that regard, and the leech aspect is the most concerning one personally, and of course the Shuri shenanigans. Like I think they just refuse to target Shuri, and Shuri's gonna be a card that's just gonna be more and more problematic as the game progresses. So I do think that's definitely a miss. But the biggest miss with this balance patch, in my opinion, is the lack of buffs. And you may argue, well, a lot of nerfs, right, alongside buffs can be a little bit too chaotic and difficult for them to predict. Yes, okay. But I don't think there's anything wrong with buffing cards like Sabretooth to be playable like Wolverine. I'm not asking for crazy buffs for like regular. I'm asking for buffs towards unplayable cards so that people have new things to mess around with. I'd rather have an environment in which we have new toys, and maybe some of them go too far, than just having an overall card pool that is essentially weaker, right? I just don't think like that's ever, you know, like it's about excitement as well. And I do feel like, especially after such a long dragged out meta, this was the perfect opportunity for them to really spice things up and give us, you know, cards that are just left unused to be explored again. And it's just, I think it's really important for digital card games nowadays, and especially for a game like Marvel Snap with the you know, the way the card acquisition is, you know, and how slow it can be, for us to be able to, you know, I don't know, explore cards that have stayed dormant in our collection and all of a sudden become. I think that the change to Wolverine was amazing, and I'd love to see more things like that. And I do think it is a miss on the developer side to not really buff anything. It's something that would have been great, and I don't think it would have made things too chaotic. And I feel like it would have given us more to mess around with. But I do have to say that the Space Stone change is fantastic. You know, the Thanos changes in general are great. And the Aero change, like I said, very exciting but terrifying at the same time. And we'll see where that goes. But overall, the Aero change is a good thing because the card has been absolutely way too dominant for far too long. And it's nice to open up the room for other options. And I'm not against it, right? But we'll see what those consequences are. I mean, time will tell. And I'm going to end my TED Talk right here. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. If you agree, if you disagree with what I said. If I'm smart, if I'm an absolute idiot. You know, whatever you want to say to me, say it. Maybe if you like my beanie as well. You know, it blends with the shirt. I don't even know, man. I'm just like really awkward here. So I'm gonna stop talking. Love you. Have a solid day. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.